previous segments, we have our tank filled up with solvent, we have our dewax chamber ready to go, and we have our collection chamber that is empty. Now, what we do beforehand, and we have our material chamber packed up with material. Now, what we do beforehand, before we start anything, is we vac down our entire system. So what we do, we have our vacuum pump right here. Plug it in like so, make sure our valve is open. Kick on the vacuum pump, and then we have our vac gauge on top of that because we're basically going to be vacuuming this chamber along with this and our dewax with our material column. We're not going to be vacuuming this part down because it has solvent in it, and we only vacuum out systems that don't have solvent in it. So if it has solvent in it, don't worry about vacuuming it. So here we go.
Go.
Alright, it's been a couple minutes now. Our system, according to our gauge, is at -30. So our system is now back down. What we're going to do now is we're going to disengage our pump first, and then we turn off the pump. Close this gauge right here. Remove the valve. Remove this gauge right there. Insert the hose, and we're ready to pump the solvent into the material chamber and then into our dewax chamber. But first, we have to fill out the dewax chamber with dry ice. So let me go ahead and do so. Let's go take a dab and let it get really frosty, and then all right. So we do have the heating pad on throughout the entire extraction process, and just please keep in mind though that this is just a temporary solution. We have the new ones on order, so this is just a little makeshift one. All right. So we've let the dewax chamber pre-chill for about 15-30 minutes. We've already seen some frost starting to build up, so we're now ready to start our extraction. Since we're not going to be doing it indoors for safety reasons, of course, we're just going to basically demonstrate what you would do when you are extracting. So we have our heating pad on, it's plugged in, it's nice and warm, and both of these valves are turned off. So we're going to open up this valve. It's going to allow the butane to pass through the hose. We then open up this valve right here, and the vacuum and the pressure from the butane will pull the butane from here, pulling it through the material down into our dewax chamber. Now, before we even do any of that, though, we want to make sure that this is closed, because we want to make sure that our solvent and our extract stay within the dewax chamber. So now, once this empties, we're only going to be putting in 3 pounds because we only have a half-pound column of material here. We're going to be putting 3 pounds of solvent through it. Once that transfers over, which should take about maybe 5 minutes at the most, we then let it sit in our dewax chamber for minimum an hour. We like to do 2 hours. Sometimes even 3 or 4. You can even go as much as 12 or 24 if you like. You just have to make sure that your dewax chamber is filled with or topped off with dry ice at all times. So we're going to go ahead and let our solvent and extract sit in there for the next couple hours, and then we'll continue with the extraction. Alright, so now we're going to submerge our collection tank in dry ice within this bucket. for joining us. We've let this sit for about 2 hours now, sitting the solvent with our extract sitting in our de-wax chamber, sitting nice and chilly. The dry ice now has melted about halfway down. We don't want to top it off at any point from this point further because we want this chamber to be colder than this chamber. By doing that, it's going to help the transfer of the butane come from here to there a lot smoother. So, with that in mind, what I would do is open up this valve and watch the solvent and the extract go through the sight glass. From there, it'll go up the hose and through our filter. Then you open up this chamber, or open up this valve, I should say, and everything's still back down to negative 30. We then open this up, and the solvent and the extract will start to flow down into our collection chamber. Keeping the collection chamber in dry ice will keep your pressure low, so you're always going to have the ability to close your valve off and build up more of a vacuum if it starts to stall. But in any event, both of these are now open, it's flowing, and that's pretty much the extraction. It'll take maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes for 3 pounds of solvent for this half-pound material chamber to go through. It'll take about 5 minutes to go through into our collection chamber. If this was a bigger run, which this machine is capable of doing, we may need to change our filter midway through our run and make it too clogged with fats and lipids. If so, what we do is we close this valve off, disconnect this, and then build up pressure and make sure that everything drains down below by making sure that this is super cold and is pulling, has a vacuum and is pulling down the solvent. From there, you close your valve off. You then press the button to make sure that there's no pressure in there, and then you remove these 2 bolts and remove the paper filter that's in there and replace it with a new one. From there, you put your bolts back on it. The hose goes back on, of course, and then you're able to open up your valves again and continue the process. After about 5 minutes, though, your 3 pounds should have gone through into your collection chamber. You'll be able to tell once the flow stops down here through your sight glass, and then you'll be ready to do the recovery process. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and take this hose off. And we're going to take this tank, the collection chamber, out of the dry ice, and we're going to place the dry ice bucket with the warm water bucket.
Wow, they are. People are going hard over some bullshit on Facebook right now.
basically just going to open up these two valves. Nice and here. Alright, so we're just about finished up here. I removed the hose from here and I attached it to our valve over here on the collection chamber. I've also removed the dry ice bucket and replaced it with a hot water bucket. We like to go for about 120 to 140 degrees. This one is now in an ice water bath. We have the scale underneath and it's hooked directly to our collection chamber. So now what we're going to do is we're going to zero off our scale. We're going to open up this valve. We then open up this valve, and basically what's going to happen here is the hot water is going to create pressure in our collection chamber. It'll start to boil, causing the vapors to go through the hose and recover into our cold recovery tank. This will take about 5 to 7 minutes per pound. So roughly for 3 pounds it will take roughly about 15 minutes, maybe 10 to 15 minutes max. So we'll check out how high the solvent is through our sight glasses and a flashlight. And we'll also check with the scale on the weights of the solvent as well to know how much we've recovered. From there, once we're done recovering, we close both valves off, remove the tank from the hot water so we're not building any extra pressure that we don't need. We then remove that hose, pull out the collection chamber, and then we're going to take off the bottom chamber off to do the pour off of the oil.